Hello, this is Patrick with New Jersey's Outdoor Adventures YouTube channel. I have Peter Grover back on the channel today, and he's going to give us a tour of some of the newest projects he's working on related to Airstream. So join us. Hello, Peter, and welcome back to New Jersey Outdoor Adventures. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on today?
Sure thing. What aren't we working on, it seems? But what I wanted to feature today is a 1962 trade wind that we have undertaken a complete restoration. So the first step was to remove the shell from the frame. The frame with the wheels and all the accessories associated with that remained on the floor, and the hoists that were attached to the two major frames had a connection through the two roof vents, one at each end, and we were able to pull the unit up. We wheeled the frame out from under it and then lowered it on a dolly, which we made, which allows for us to move this anywhere in the shop. There's an Airstream ad that shows two men carrying a shell like this. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just show how easily this moves. So it's very, very flexible from that respect. While we're working on the frame, I'll explain why we're going to be working on the frame in a minute. We went to the effort of polishing the skin, as it's called, the aluminum, with the coarse polishes, the coarse grades. So this is done the way a good paint job is done on an automobile or a piece of equipment. All of the parts are removed so that you wouldn't tape them, and you really would never be able to polish them correctly. This is a clearance light here, this badging here. So everything's off so that you can get a nice clean run and a nice end result. So this is money in the bank to have this at this stage and waiting for the rest of the show. In order to work on the frame efficiently, I came up with an idea of making a rotisserie for the frame, and this too is suspended by the chain hoists at a height that will allow you to flip the frame into any position. Started off with fixtures that I made in the welding shop that will allow the support without bending the frame or causing some damage to it or to us while we're working on it. This is very simple in principle. It's water pipe and more water pipe, a strap, and these are set screws that will stop the pivoting. So if you can picture, when this is picked up and you begin to rotate it, this will pivot to whatever point you want. There's a similar setup in the rear of this. So I'd like to go back to that now. This is what's called a ladder frame. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, this is the top of the frame, I might mention. A ladder frame with a section on the outside that is called an outrigger, and the piece in between is basically a cross member. This is very beautifully constructed. All we really have done so far is clean the insulation and other debris off of the units, and now it's ready for some additional work. The black water tank, which is a direct connection to the toilet, will sit in this area, and in this area it has a depth of 6 inches, which is sufficient for a mid-sized tank. What this did not come equipped with was a gray water tank, which is wash water. And wash water you used to be able to dump on the ground directly without any ramifications. But at this point, that is considered illegal in most states and is just not such a great idea to even think about it. So the idea is that we'll take tanks that have approximately 16 gallons each and represent an area that fills probably 90% of this space, and there will be 3 tanks for the gray water. 1, 2, 3. They will be interconnected. Then, for the purpose of balance, since the axle is right here, so this is a pivot point, so we don't get too much weight on the back, we're going to jump over and put the 3 water tanks, 1, 2, 3, up here to provide more weight for the tongue. Normally, however, you'll be traveling with the tanks empty, but in the event that you have to travel with all of them full, you still want to have weight on the tongue, and I've been very careful about that in the design of this. This is the rear rotisserie, made up of various parts. Unistrut is something that is used in construction quite frequently and very, very strong. When we first did this, we went to lift and the bumper immediately started to bend. So going back to my hot rodding and drag racing days, and created here what is referred to as a slapper bar, meaning that when this tries to bend, the force is immediately transferred up into where I have these in. It's almost a tight fit naturally, and it remains rigid. That was to avoid bending the bumper. So with 7 tanks to mount within this frame matrix, it was going to be necessary to increase the depth of the frame from the 4 inches that we have here to approximately 6 inches, and that will go to the bottom. And we'll have to extend every one of the cross members accordingly, and that will give room for a little bit of slope in the tanks and a little bit of space, because I want the pipes to run under this part of the frame and not have to cut through it, because that would weaken it. In addition to, this is the area right here where the axle mounts, where my fist is, and that also has to be lowered 2 inches in order to, you cannot have the axle running through the bottom of the body. It has to clear it. So the axle mount has to be moved down, as well as the shock absorber mount would get moved down approximately 2 inches, and taking into account the geometry of this, it doesn't necessarily drop straight down. These are the steps which will definitely need to be replaced. All of the edges here are very worn, and it doesn't actually lock properly, so it's just a bad security. So I will be replacing this unit. We still have a lot of selection to do with things like the flooring. We haven't quite gotten to that point. Airstream is using a product now that is impervious to water. It's called Nucor, I believe. And we've also considered fiberglass and the old standby, which would be marine plywood doped up with ample amounts of resin. Don't know yet quite how we're going to do that. But the reason for these extra tanks is that we like to boondock, and without adequate storage and supply of water, it becomes really a less enjoyable experience. One of the things that attracted us to this was the jalousie window. This was pretty much a 1-year offering. We think that this really adds a beautiful touch to the whole process. But there's much to do, and Patrick, I don't know whether your viewers would be interested in seeing the inside of it, but that illustrates the bracing that was necessary to keep the bottom from spreading and the top from going in some fashion that we don't want. And of course, this dolly that we built is perfect for keeping this intact. Say, this is fascinating, the strength that is achieved with this type of bow system, bent and then attached with primarily rivets all the way through. And the strength that is accomplished with this is what we all know from aircraft design. It's how it manages to fly and flex. Okay, what I'd like to show you now is what we have preserved for the purpose of being able to always place the parts that came off the floor. But this is the subfloor, as it's called, and this would go directly on top of the frame. And then actually, if you look at this pattern along this is where the shell would sit on top of this plywood. This was the Blackwater tank back here, which is at the rear of the Airstream. So that's the rear, the front up there. There's a cutout here which allows for the heated air in the cabin in the winter time to keep the tanks from freezing, or the tank singular, I should say. Interesting things. This is for the trap to extend down into the cavity under it for the trap for the shower. Things like that we don't want to forget we need, and also want to know where they are. This is an outlet for heat. These are the wheel wells here, these two. This is composed of 4-foot wide sheets that measure 8 feet to begin with and then are trimmed down. It's tongue and groove construction. This one is the furnace. This is the water heater, and this is the doorway. That's a piece of the threshold, and this is air inlet for the refrigerator, and this is where the gaucho remained. On the older models, you find that water is infiltrated somewhere. I found that it was actually coming in through a light fixture on the outside that had never been properly sealed, and it just came right straight down and has rotted this. So that's another reason that we did the frame-off construction. Also in our shop, waiting for restoration, is an Argosy. This is a 1972 model. Argosy was a division of Airstream, but marketed under the name of Argosy, and it was a test bed for new products. And one of the things that is very different about this is this beautiful wrap-around window, that when you're inside the trailer, you have a very nice panoramic view when you take into account both sides. The other very unique thing about this is that this is painted aluminum, so it is aluminum construction, almost exactly like the Airstream, but again painted, and they were all done in a very subtle colors, pastels, and not shiny, but flat paint also. But another incredibly unique idea was that they would do away with the aluminum panels, which are very time-consuming to assemble and come in 5 sections up to 15, the maximum. So this was stamped steel, one piece. So the tooling probably cost some money to make, but they could make them with one swipe, thunk, like a fender. For many folks, for years, was this model, this brand, I should say, was looked down upon as a second-rate Airstream. Time has proved otherwise, I'm happy to say, and many people now tend to favor the Argosy because you can paint it, which will individualize your trailer more than how shiny is your trailer. We bought this probably 15 years ago, and we have not been able to get around to it, but there's no shame in that. We have it. This has twin axles, tandem axles, which really add great stability on the road, and also in the event of a flat tire, you're not dragging the wheel hubs down on the pavement and ruining the fenders usually in the process. It does have an awning on it. I think now we should take the big step up. As we look at the front of this, we see immediately a gaucho, which is chair arrangement or sofa arrangement that is in so many of the Airstreams of this era. The inside of this is outfitted beautifully with aluminum extrusions bordering all of the cabinets, both sides, which creates tremendous strength and rigidity, but also creates a very nice, neat look. And since this is a Formica trade name material, laminate is probably the correct term for it, and we were really taken by it. The condition of it is pretty obvious, even though it's all original. But things such as the sinks plural, just about perfect, and this is a real piece of history, my friends. 4-burner stove, very, very efficient. This is the same unit that we have in our 78 Excella. And believe me, they cook beautifully. Magic Chef did a gorgeous job. This refrigerator, I am sure, is not original, and yet it sort of fits in, even though it's not real old. It's not real new either, and plenty of storage in this. Storage overhead, nice. Nice cabinetry. So this has a roof vent here, and it has one in the middle and one in the bathroom. Going back into the second bedroom, we'll call it, so you would sleep up in the front, and also this will fold out into, I believe, a twin bed. Yes, this has another extension piece that goes on it. Again, very nice cabinets, and in the back, getting on over here, there is a shower that is actually high enough for me to wash in. And everything's pretty clean and sleek. I mean, this was not a second-rate trailer by any means. Let's go this way. This is the most unusual trailer in our collection. It is a 15-panel trailer. 13 panels was the maximum that any were made. This was, again, an experimental unit, but the first piece of aluminum originally came up to this height, and they added this piece because of looks, I guess, or rigidity. I'm not quite sure what their purpose was, but there are 4 of them made, and to the best of my knowledge, this is the only one that still exists. Fred Caldwell, who is our historian for the Airstream Vintage Club, had documented this unit and said that this is extremely rare, and it is definitely the most rare one we have in the whole collection. Some of the unique factors in this, when you look at from the outside, you have a shanty chimney there because it has a kerosene heater in it, which is still in place. And in the back, while the front panels are flat, Patrick, I'm going to suggest if you will follow me around here, you can get at least a look at the back. It is a torpedo rear and very, very unique when looked at as one unit. Airstream did have for a few years in the early 50s, if I didn't mention this is probably a 50 or 51 model year, that they would offer flat or torpedo ends on either end, but again, not too many people ordered them with the torpedo ends. They ordered the flat ends because it does provide more space, which we'll see when we go inside. See just how much. This is exactly as I bought it, so it's not a thing of beauty in terms of the housekeeping side of it, but it is very interesting. So here, there's remnants of the sofa, which sat on an aluminum. This would have been the cover for the framing of it. So I don't really have any of the rest of it. It's the water tank, so it has water on board above the floor level. It has a propane fueled lamp there, and very crude these lamps. Glad this isn't plugged in, Patrick. This would be a death trap. But that's how they did some of this stuff. Again, taken by the cabinets. These are all functional, and they hook up there. So we got those, and underneath the sink there's storage. But it's very, very nice construction, considering the age and the circumstances. This is the kerosene heater that I was telling you about. This is the outlet, so a piece of pipe goes in between the two when you're not traveling, and that there's a couple pieces right here that would get stacked in between. I don't know that I would use it, but I know people who have, and it would probably be very efficient. The refrigerator's original, and isn't it really cute? You know, has so many of the features of the early 50s. So as we go back, the layout opens up a little bit, and we have a nice chest of drawers here in the bedroom on one side, and this I think is probably more for the kitchen, but there is hanging space in there. But the construction of these cabinets is really noteworthy, and I've got more overhead cabinets. I guess I thought there were some back there. Underneath there's very good storage also. There are drawers that slide out, and the bathroom is really very small, and we both shouldn't walk back there or we're going to tip this trailer. Tipping the scales is not something we need to do at this point, but it had very minimal utilities in it, but it's still, to me, represents an era that shouldn't be forgotten. And because of that, I still love this as much as I did when we first got it. Over here, we're looking at the parts that came out of the '64 trade wind. The largest part being the interior end caps for the inside, well, the trailer. It switches from aluminum to fiberglass, and the interior finish is very similar to the aluminum. And beyond that, there are some pieces that we've put in place that are for this is the base channel into which the body, the studs or the bows fit into that. But you can see where it was pie cut, which is taking sections out to allow the unit to curve. In this area is everything that we took out of the interior of the unit. These are parts that were for the bed most likely, and so on. It's pretty tough to see some of this stuff upside down and sideways, but these would have been under the bed, and this is the refrigerator for the unit, and then these are cabinets that would go in the front, and these are air ducts for the refrigerator. And we'll probably use these as templates. I don't think we're going to try to refinish this. It is oak, so it stands a chance, but we may use it as patterns only and move on from that point.
And that's exactly what I did with my 1961 Bambi. I took out these components and either used them as templates, or I sanded and re-veneered them. To try to use some of the original parts inside.
Yeah, that would add some strength. We really don't know how we're going to do this yet, so that maybe at another time you can do a follow-up here. I would welcome that and make sure that I'm still on the ball.
I would love to be invited back. Your knowledge and passion for Airstream is incredible. Just being able to be here in the shop and be in your presence is a gift. And I really thank you for having me down today.
Well, that's just wonderful, and I would like to add one thing to what you said, and that is that my career predominantly was in commercial and industrial construction, building large facilities for automobile dealers, offices, warehouses, manufacturing plants, etc., etc. The last job that I sold before my retirement was to Colonial Airstream. And they selected our company because they felt that I would understand what they wanted better than anyone else that they talked to. And I said, you're probably right. You should have us build your building. And now the beautiful facility that is on Route 33, it's just culmination of my career and hopefully not my hobby. And I do stay in close touch with the folks involved in that company and think the world of them. And it's not just a plug, it's something from the heart.
Well, Peter, thank you for taking the time today. This is Patrick with New Jersey's Outdoor Adventures YouTube channel. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please like this video, comment, share, and subscribe. I'd love it, and we'll see you soon.
Goodbye, everyone.